Hello and welcome back from the break, and a special welcome to our viewers joining us on television. This is your favorite news analysis program, The Big Issue. I'm sitting in for your regular host, Godfred Akotoba. My name is Duke Mentopoku. The past 1 hour, we've been discussing the state of the economy based on the lecture delivered by John Dramani Mahama, leader of the NDC, the 2020 flag bearer of the NDC, where he connected the themes of social justice and sustainability to the current situation in terms of the economic reality for the Ghanaian. Having in studio the Honorable Joseph Dindio Pemka, former Deputy Attorney General, former MP for Timpani. Alex Segwefia is also the Director of International Relations for the NDC, and we have also been joined virtually by Franklin Cudjoe, founding President of Imani Africa. So we'll wrap up the conversation in studio, and I'll bring in the Honorable Joseph Pemka.
The matters that were raised.
Just a quick intervention and we'll move
on. He was talking about numbers in terms of admissions. You see, unrestrained and unbridled kind of discharge of persons into the system will even be more chaotic. I'll give you an example. Before they left office, there was a particular nursing training college up north that admitted close to 1,000 students to pursue the health assistant training, that's the certificate. Close to 1,000. And there was only one health facility there that the students could do their clinicals. And that health facility couldn't take more than 50 people. And the clinicals is a necessary component of their study. So what are you going to do with the rest? This is not a theoretical project. It's something that has to do with human life. So you regulate it in a manner that you have the people to be able to get health facilities that will make them get the practical training to do the work. So some of the policies that have been put in place are geared towards ensuring quality rather than churning out unimaginable numbers that will have no effect at all or that will be injurious to the health of people. That's what I wanted to just add.
Okay, let me go to Franklin Cudjoe on Zoom for wrapping up comments on this particular issue.
I think these are interesting conversations to be had, and this is not going to be the last. For me, one thing stands out: the centralization of economic decisions in this country must be given a second look. Everything should not be decided in Accra. Sometimes when I read manifestos and I read government plans, it makes me think that we are not learning lessons of proper decentralization. The decentralization we are implementing is about appointing people from the center to go and continue the, as it were, the so-called vision of the center. When we continue on that path, what we are likely to see is this huge disconnect between the very ingredients of, should I call it, livelihoods. I do not understand, for instance, why my district, which used to be under the Volta region, but now, we are now set to be part of OT, should not be able to retain, health personnel or teachers based on their own prowess, economic prowess. Yeah. And that's, for me, one of the conversations I think we need to have. The center is overburdened. The center that pretends to take care of everybody, and that is clearly not happening. It's a conversation I think we need to have about how exactly we need to de-emphasize the command control type of economic management that we have.
All right.
And let me just add that, one of the things that we need to start looking at carefully, again, this conversation about employment levels. My question really has to be, had we asked ourselves what the levers or the elements of a real organized economy look like, we wouldn't have the center still thinking about the employing people. Would have thought that the economy would have been built in such a way that ordinary people would be able to employ quite a number of persons that they work with. The command control type of economic management must cease.
All right. So that's how we wrap up the conversation on the economy, which we've been discussing for the past 1 hour and a little bit more, 1 hour and more, based on the lecture from former President John Dramani Mahama. Now let's move on to another story of devastation. And a week after, days after, many persons in that part of the country are still counting their losses and raising questions about disaster management relief, resettlement, and sea defense project in its continuation and termination or otherwise. To put that in perspective, I have a couple of reports to look at now. The tidal waves displaced hundreds of residents in the Keta municipality of the Volta region. The incident occurred on Sunday, November 7th. Affected communities include Keji Copper, Keta Central, and Abusia Copper. The residents were forced out of their homes and rendered homeless, while others salvaged some of their belongings onto portions of the main road waiting for the water to recede. The communities, especially Sala Copper and Amutino, were the hardest hit. The residents who spoke to City News say they are in between the sea and the lagoon. According to the assembly member Ebenezer Asa, if the situation is not addressed by government in time, the sea will split the road and cause greater havoc to residents. The situation has so far caused most of the residents to salvage their belongings onto portions of the main road while they wait for the water to recede. The National Disaster Management Organization, the Coastal Development Authority, and others have since presented relief items and outboard motors to the affected communities. So, get for you a report which highlights what has happened in the Keta municipality and a statement made by the Minister for Works and Housing, Francis Asenso-Boakye. The situation here is not the best. The tidal waves, there are portions of the remnants of what has happened over the past 24 hours is clearly evident here in Jita. It's as I speak to you, residents are counting their losses moments after, or days or hours after this actually transpired.
Going through all this settlement, one thing stands out. Those who are affected badly, especially those at the southern part of the road or the towns, the clarion call is relocation. Before the relocation, I think government must intervene quickly, especially NADMO, to come to the aid of the people. That they fashion out some things for them to live on, and especially they must give some beddings too for them, so that they will be able to work on those things for them. I think that one will work for now.
This is the Fuvema Basic School. About 6 years ago, we were told that it was not located at its present place where we can find it. Even as we speak, it still has clear signs of destruction. It is, as we speak, not in the best of shapes, obviously affected by the tidal waves that came in last night. It's been a perennial problem, but we can see its impact currently on set. I'm told that 6 years ago, the basic school, which serves the residents of this community, was not located here, but it was consumed, eating away by the sea, and that is why it was relocated to this present place. But today, school activity has been brought to a standstill because of the nature of destruction. And I would in a bit engage the headmaster of this institution, of this school, who would tell me how much of a problem this tidal wave that came in the last 24 hours and the impact that it's had on the residents, and of course the students as well.
There is no school. There is no classroom for the children to get in. So the children are just stranded. We can't do any academic work today. Not even today. Henceforth, children don't have classrooms to stay in. Yes. But we managed to get the Form 3s a place whereby they can do their revision for next week to start their exams.
What are your expectations going forward, looking at how much of a problem this is to the academic environment in this community generally?
Really, the school, this is the second place. It was relocated to this place about 6 years now. And in actual fact, the children over here, they do perform very well. But because of the destruction of these tidal waves, performance is no longer going on because the thing is coming gradually, and today's one is very, very effective. Yes.
So what would be your plea?
Oh, actually, my appeal is that if you look around, you see that the whole area is affected by the sea. So, in fact, if they can be relocated to another place altogether, I think that will help.
But let us get a first-hand feel of the impact of the tidal waves in this area. The Fuveme Basic School serves students in this community. Now I have 2 final year students here, Theodore and Vivian, and they would actually tell me what the impact of this academic work is on, or what the impact of the tidal waves, how it is affecting them as they prepare for their final examination.
It has destroyed a lot of things. Even it has destroyed our studies, which make us not to study. The examiners who have said the question did not know whether we are in trouble or not. The sea waves destroys everything. Even since last week, we did not study anything. That is what is happening to us.
We don't have any class to study.
So that was a report detailing what actually happened there a day after. So this was on Monday. Since then, the story has developed, but it's an issue that requires permanent solutions, and that's what will be the crux of the discussion that we'll be having for the next 1 hour. Joining us on Zoom is Professor Chris Gordon, Director of the Institute for Environment and Sanitation Studies at the University of Ghana. Welcome, Prof.
Good morning to you and your listeners, and please, I correct again for City. I am the former or founding director. I'm no longer the current director.
Yes, so the founding director, yeah.
Yeah. The issue that we are discussing today, as you have mentioned, is a perennial problem. Records of sea erosion in the area of the eastern coastline, as it is known, have been captured since 1907, where up to 7 meters of land were lost in one particular year. So it is not new, but it seems that we are using the same approach every time it happens. And there is a saying that if you keep on using the same method to deal with a problem and expect a different result, then that means something is wrong with you. So we need to understand the root causes. We also need to understand that there is a strong cultural identity tied with land and place. So even when we talk about relocation has not just the fact of finding a place that is suitable, convincing the people to move, but what sort of measures that will be put in place to make the people come to terms with this relocation. Tied to all of this is these people who have been affected, many of them are fisher folk, and they need to be close to the sea to carry out their jobs, their livelihoods. So when you're relocating, where are you going to put them? Are you going to put them in a place where they can no longer carry out what they know what to do? In that case, are you going to provide other measures of livelihood generation for them? But let us put this whole thing in the context of the climate challenge that we are facing. And I would like to bring our minds back to the point made by the Honorable President when he spoke at the climate change COP in Glasgow, that even though we are not the causes of climate change, i.e. with the greenhouse gas emissions, we are the ones in the developing world who are bearing the brunt of this. And I think what we are seeing in the Qatar area right now is exactly what he was talking about. Now the question is, how do we move forward? How do we move forward in a way where we do not continually have to come back and call on NADMO and this, or make political mountain out of people's lives and tragedy? And we have a new body, the Coastal Development Authority. And I think this lands squarely in their remit of finding sustainable management of Ghana's coast. We have only 550, 560, depending on the map you use, kilometers of coast. So and not all of the coast is eroding, even though all the coasts are eroding. So what can we do practically moving forward in such a way that we can reduce the amount of erosion? But in the immediate term, people who are being relocated, the children whose lives may be destroyed because they could not concentrate on their exams, we need to find immediate solutions to that. And it is not just blankets. Yes, they need blankets, they need shelter and so forth, but there's a lot more that needs to be done. I would go into some of the causes of the erosion and things perhaps later on, but I think they're well known. Sand winning, sea level rise, even the siting of buildings as important as a school in a place where the indigents would have told the people that this is not a good place to build a school, because they're aware of what happens. So one of the things that we need to take away from this particular tragedy is that those people who are taking the decisions should listen to the local people. They need to consult them. They need to understand their point of view and use their accumulated knowledge and wisdom over all these years in how to deal with issues of sea erosion.
Okay. Prof, there's also, many have suggested that the completion of the sea defense project or the sea defense wall on the southern Volta shoreline, that would bring some permanent respite to the residents who live in that area. And indeed, if there's a construction of a port as it is being touted, that would also resolve the issues associated with the high rise and the tidal waves and the problems associated with that. What do you think about these suggestions?
Yes, in the short term, perhaps.
Okay.
When you talk about long term, I actually doubt. The reason is that there is a normal level of recession of our shoreline. And every time we interfere with the natural transportation of sand from the western part of the country, we then cause more erosion on any point beyond the intervention. So, yes, you can do a sea defense, but unless you do the sea defense from here to perhaps somewhere near Lagos or beyond, you'll find that you'll always be causing more erosion in neighboring countries. Okay. Now we can do sea defense to Aflao or Senu, but then you're going to find that the rate of erosion in Togo will increase, and then you have an international incident. That is one thing. The second thing is that the drivers of sea erosion are increasing. You have these so-called tidal waves when you have a combination of factors: a high tide, strong wind in a particular direction, and you have what is known as a storm surge. Now, you add to that sea level rise caused by global warming. And it's not just the ice caps melting, it's that but also as water gets warmer, it occupies more volume. So as the seas get warmer, they are going to rise. It's called hydrostatic expansion. So the question is, how high are you going to make that sea defense? Because you have to keep on making it higher and higher and higher until you end up with a Netherlands-type solution where we know, or they have built dikes which are several meters above the sea level and their land is below the sea. We also have to look at the cost. The cost of revetment, which is what we do. We use groins. These are when we put structures out into the sea to trap the sand. And revetments, which are the material, heavy material, rocks and so forth, we put to prevent the sand from washing away. Costs an average in Ghana of approximately 10 million a kilometer. And that is actually on the low side. In other places where they do this type of sea defense, it can cost up to 30 million a kilometer. If you're going to go the dike solution, where, as in Netherlands, where you have massive structures built with roads and buildings, farms even on top of the dikes, you're going into the 500 to $750 million per kilometer range. So we need to factor all of these things into it. There are other associated implications of even moving the material from one place to another to protect the coast. So it's something that I would say you need to have a really deep dive into the actual cost benefits of having additional sea defense. The road has always been used, and the fact that communities are cut off have been used as a justification of having this sea defense. Perhaps there are other options that we haven't explored. The final thing that I'll say on this is that all the sea defense, practically, have been funded by donors, by grants, or by loans. Do we have somebody who's willing and ready to step up immediately to start doing the sea defense? So what I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of unanswered questions. And before we embark on a long-term solution to this perennial problem, we need to really study it. In the area where I work, that is in environment and sustainability, we have a concept known as a wicked problem. It's a scientific concept. And that principle says that there are problems which are so complicated and so intertwined that in the attempt to solve one part of the problem, you end up making another part worse. So we need to consider our options very carefully. And I must admit that over the years, there have been many, many studies on this Qatar issue. But it seems that we don't go back into the history of the previous studies to see how we can move forward. We always seem to want to try and do something from scratch. Thank you.
Okay. So that's Professor Chris Gordon. I also have Dr. Donatus Bapintere, who's with the Center for Coastal Management at the University of Cape Coast, to also question him on this issue of tidal waves and its link, its intrinsic link to the climate change conversation, which is currently being had all over the world following the COP26, which just ended. Dr. Donatus, this essentially has been described as a wicked problem by Professor Chris Gordon. Both of you work in the same area in terms of coastal management and the environment. What's your own prognosis of the issue and what can be done to resolve it?
Thank you again. Good morning to your listeners and good morning to everyone. I think Professor Chris Gordon has spoken a lot on the issue, so I may not spend so much time on it. On my side, I think that this issue is not new, as the earlier speaker said. It's not new. We have heard about tides, flooding, and other hazards in the past. What I want to add is the causes. You know, our environment, our coastal system, we know the topographical variations along the entire coast. If you look at it properly, the shelf, the continental shelf of the coastline of Ghana is not wide. It's wider mostly in the west and narrow towards the delta. And given that, it's also narrow and steep. And we know that towards the Volta Delta, the topographical area is quite low. And we always say it's below the 30-meter contour, or it is below sea level. In such a natural situation, when we have the little rise in water levels, it is expected that we'll have such a situation, or we'll have some flooding. So one of the causes is the natural settings of the environment over there. As Prof said, if you look at the place on the internet, or even if you go there, you will see that the sandbar between the sea and then the land is higher than the land. So you can, if there is any breach, you know, and that is what is happening. Right now, if you go there, there is a breach between the sandbar has been breached by the sea. And at high tide, you see a lot of water flowing from the sea onto the land. So the topographical settings of the environment is very important, and it has affected them largely. Secondly, I also want to say that, yes, natural factors are leading to the hazards, but I have been going there, and I want to emphasize on the human factor too.
Okay.
If you visit that place, you will see people using pickups to pick sand. No matter how small it is, we have the belief that it's going to destabilize the natural equilibrium of the beach. And if you use a pickup to pick sand for like 5 times a day, you can imagine how much sand you would have taken. Okay. Unfortunately, there's a lot of sand at that stretch of the beach. However, as I said, if you continue, you are going to destabilize the area. And already you have a low-lying environment. So if you continue, it will definitely influence your beach when there is a little rise in tide or water level. There are other human factors, like the vegetation there is being cut. Most of the mangroves, I see them being cut. I was at Anyanui. I was at Anyanui last month with some colleagues. You would see them being cut, and then wherever they transport them to, I don't know. But
okay.
But
just not to hold on to that thought, but just on the issue of sand winning, yes, and the human factor, at least for the natural part, the topography of the place and climate change, it may require extra effort in terms of funding. But with the human factor, that can be stopped by policy. What are the measures you think should be put in place to ensure that the human factors that you are alluding to would not further aggravate the situation?
Yes. You see, the human factors, as you said, if we make a policy that don't do this, after considering the effect, then we may implement those policies.
Okay.
They are fetching this sand to mold blocks and to build houses. They are selling, some of them may sell it for money or for their livelihood. So yes, we are all humans. We have to understand their situation. We have to know why they are doing those things. And we have to find a solution for to solve their problems. If it is about livelihood, we have to consider, or we have to think about what we can do to make sure that they have some livelihood instead of fetching the sun or destroying the vegetation that is going to affect this climate change we are talking about. And yes, so I think we have to look at their conditions, do our policy, and factor in how it will not affect them more than what they are going through.
Okay, all right. Let me come back in studio and engage our panelists in studio. I'll begin with you, Honorable Alex Sebefia, because of your understanding of the area and how this probably hits close to home.
Can I first of all commiserate with our people in the Volta region, predominantly in Kita and underlying areas. I'm very grateful to City FM for bringing on the two experts who have come on and explained in a non-partisan way the issues that go on. And I'm going to try and stay as much as possible away from politics and rather think of the plight of the people who are caught up in this unfortunate incident. The first thing that strikes me of importance from what we've heard so far, and I have known it for a fact as I grew up, is that it's not a new phenomenon. In fact, the old people in our hometowns will tell you that a minimum of half a mile of original Kita is in the sea. That's how much of what was Kita in the 50s and the 40s is no longer part of the city anymore. Old forts, old buildings are all being taken away by the sea. And that's the first thing I want to concur with, that actually it has been an ongoing phenomenon, and we've got some scientific explanation for that. Unlike what happens when the Badri Dam is opened and land is flooded, that is a man-made phenomenon which we are always aware of and should actually be looking at steps to try and deal with. When you come to the issue of the coast, we all know it's there. You never know when it's going to happen, and it occurs without any warning. What is also significant about this is that there are aggravating issues to it. The human factors you've heard about. Some talk of sand winning. Some talk of the second one, which I actually was more intrigued about, was the lack of the undergrowth or the growth, the mangroves and which people are harvesting or getting rid of, the coconut trees, etc. And for me, that becomes an aggravating feature. What is sad is that the sand winning that is going on is not necessarily by people who actually are in the area, if that is the case. People sometimes come from elsewhere, building elsewhere, and just come and collect the sand and go. So it's not the locals who do this, in inverted commas, because you have some collaboration of sorts, but it's not. And I also believe that when you put too much emphasis on that sort of thing, it takes on a political connotation, because sand winning is actually worse in other parts of Ghana than in that stretch of land. Sand winning goes on almost everywhere. But having listened to the experts, you also have to look at the topography of the land. And when you look at it and the shelf, you do realize that the impact may be more in the Volta region area than elsewhere because of the particular shelf we have with regard to the land. It's also significant to note that sea defense has been ongoing since the government of Rawlings, right up to this, and even some would say beyond. But the cost of it, I was very happy when Professor Gordon started talking about figures. Because if 1 kilometer is a minimum of $10 million going towards 30 million, and if you want to talk about dikes, which they have in Holland, you're looking at almost 500 million for a kilometer's stretch. Then the issue of cost effectiveness also is important. Successive governments have had difficulty, and it is not an issue that pertains to any one particular government. What I think government needs to be doing, though, which is a point which may stray into the political realm, but not in a bad way, but just as a, is that it's important that people have a sense of apathy coming from the top. A perfect example was, I remember we were on our way to Bolga when we got news in 2012 that the Malcolm building had collapsed, and we were in government at the time. So we all had to stop the convoy we were moving in, and we had to immediately go back to Tamale, catch a flight, stop the campaign, and by the following morning, afternoon, in fact late afternoon, that evening, we were at the Malcolm site in Achimota to commiserate and see what work was going on. The Israelis had come in, they brought sniffer dogs, all manner of things. Then the postmortem was held subsequently.
Yeah, but the request for the report to release was never released.
Well, I can't go into that at this stage.
Of course.
The point I'm making is the immediate show of apathy. And there are agencies that are responsible for these reports. And I think there's nothing stopping anybody from chasing it now. My interest didn't follow through because I was very concerned about how permits were obtained, who was the consultant who was given to check on contracts. All those things have been, but that's for another program. We can come to that. I don't have a problem. The point I'm making is there must be some greater show of apathy from government, a little. Because the feeling is that, rightly or wrongly, that's why I'm trying to be a little bit, rightly or wrongly, that is the feeling on the ground. As if, it's almost as if they've been left to their own devices. And there seems to be a lack of, or an inertia, and I'm sure it's financial, when NADMO has to move in very quickly, even with the Bagri Dam issues and stuff, you see that they do come in, but it's sometimes a week or so too late. So you would hope that there were some stocks, bearing in mind we know that these things are happening, of certain things to help ameliorate the concerns of the people on the ground. But apart from that minor criticism, if you allow me, I'd like to take it out of the political domain and say, look, it's historical, it's been there for years, these are the figures, these are the possible solutions, even planting again, getting more vegetation along that coastline, etc., stopping sand winning, all that, those are long-term solutions to the problem. But the bigger solution, however, is this whole issue of COP26 and the climate change issue, and how everybody in the world is going to start looking at climate change as a big issue that needs to help resolve this matter. Thank you.
I'll bring you in on this one. On the point of whether our governments over the years and even in the future, as a country, is ready to deal with these emerging issues within the context of what has happened in Qatar.
Well, first of all, let me thank Professor Chris Gordon and my brother, Dr. He's called Dr.
Donatus.
Yeah, Donatus. Dr. Donatus, for the insights they've given. My brother ended somewhere. I want to take off from there. He ended on a note of looking at it from the view of how the world should tackle global changes in terms of the climate and all that. First of all, Duke, if you look at what is happening, well, most unfortunately, it's just a tip of the iceberg. Most unfortunately. Because all over the world, we've seen the devastation of tsunamis. And then we've also seen the effects of the global occurrence known as El Nino. How El Nino, tsunamis, and these landslides have devastated certain parts of the world in the past. Some of which almost came to close to apocalyptic levels and proportions and all that. We are nowhere there, and we pray never to be there. But what I saw of Fuveme and the other communities is a tragedy. It's a tragedy, and again, I like to say that Alex said something, that half a kilometer of Keta has been consumed by the sea over a stretch. What it means is that it's not about to stop. So measures ought to be put in place to avert this, or there will be no Keta in 40, 50 years at all. But that community, for me, I'm not an expert and I don't pretend to be one. But I will suggest that that community, looking at the topography, the low-lying nature of the place, and the devastating effects of these tidal waves, I think a long-term solution will be to relocate them. Okay. That's my candid opinion. Because, you see, Professor Gordon is saying something which we should be mindful of. When you fight the tidal waves by erecting these barriers, okay, sea defense, at one location, you are only forcing it to relocate
another place.
To another place.
Creating an international
So probably what we are supposed to do in Ghana will be to start from Axim and end at Keta. Then what happens? It relocates to Ivory Coast and in Togo. So it's a very complex thing that will need a team of technical people to brainstorm and come up with a practical solution that will stand the test of time.
There's a certain sense of attachment.
There's a question I want you to ask Professor or Gordon or Dr. Donatus. You see, if you relocate them, what we are hearing is that, and we know that the erosion has been ongoing for a while. So at what point will it stop? Do you relocate them 10 miles upstream? Do you relocate them 5 miles upstream? Where, if we are saying that the erosion is coming, is it going to stop when the land mass, where it reaches, where is that land mass going to be for it to stop? So that's an interesting scientific question I would like to.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
But I was also asking about the people's affinity to the place they live and its attachment to their source of livelihood.
Yes.
There are questions that needs to be answered when it comes
yes,
to
it's a very important point. But some of these things are not actuated by just the intent to do it, but by the circumstances. You see, my brother knows, as a lawyer, that we have in law a principle known as the doctrine of necessity.
Yes.
Sometimes you invoke it not because you like it, but because of the circumstances, the peculiar circumstances of the case that you are handling. Then you trigger that doctrine of necessity to be able to resolve a particular issue. So relocating them is not necessarily something they may like. And you have indicated affinity, and I mean the fact that some of them probably their great-grandfathers lived there. You know, so their body, spirit, and soul owe their allegiance to that particular place. So if you relocate the person, he's just embodied living somewhere, but everything of his is still here. I agree. But that option against the backdrop of the whole place being consumed by the sea, which one do we prefer? Yeah. You see, because this construction you are talking about, I don't think that governments from Rawlings to His Excellency Nana Addo, all that stretch, I don't think that any government had any ill intent. If it were easy, it would have been done long ago, isn't it? But it's not been done because, Professor Godwin has spoken extensively about cost, which is very serious. But yes, along the line, we must find the money to do it anyway. Because we cannot raise our hands all up to the heavens and say that nothing can be done. Otherwise, the effects, consequently, could be more costly than anticipated. But again, when my brother tried to run away from politics, he tried, eventually he got himself caught up a little bit in it.
Just a little bit.
I was, just a little bit. that one is, I must concede. Because when I heard Duke's report, it was very clear. Duke indicated when people have intervened, organizations and individuals who have intervened. I think you did indicate that in your report. NADMO had come in. NADMO also runs a very constrained administration. It is not as easy as that. They don't have everything. So as and when issues arise, then there's mobilization. But I agree with Alex that we have something sitting there. When something arises, then you go use it to ameliorate the suffering of the people while you organize more to be able to support and all that. But government has actually intervened through NADMO. It may not be enough, but more will be organized to ensure that a lot is done. I was listening to a report last night on one of your sister stations, and there was an interview granted, and it was indicated that His Excellency former President Mahama will be visiting the place today, and etc. I was listening to one of them. I don't know whether one of your sister stations. But that's not even the point. The point is, should we be doing politics as usual with this? Or we should brainstorm as a nation to find a way forward? Because, look, the consequences could last 200 years. Because what I saw, I thought that it was just one of the things I've been reading in the Bible, that the end has come. Because the level of devastation, the Son of Man just had no place to lay his head. And it was so sad. And I sympathize with the people at that geography. But you see, one other thing we should also take into consideration is the human factor. This sand winning, as he spoke about, the experts spoke about it, and all that. We have to be mindful of that. Because in an effort to make a living, you can dig your own grave. And that is very dangerous. So we should be able to handle it well. But when I was doing some research on this whole tidal waves, I came across a certain definition that I found that I thought is way beyond our management. Because they were talking about the fact that it is caused basically by an interaction between the sun, moon, and the earth. Basically, an interaction between the sun, the moon, and the earth leads to the rise in tides, which is way beyond human control. And I think that it is also because of some of the things are because of human activity, leading to the depletion of the ozone layer, and etc., and exposing us to more heat. And then, as Prof indicated, the melting of the polar ice and the rise in levels of sea, and etc. These are all technical issues, and technical brains are required to resolve them. And we must find long-term solutions. See, knee-jerk reactions will not solve this problem, because this is not the first time this issue has happened. It has happened to Keta before in the past. What did we do as a people? We spoke about it probably for a week or two, and we went to sleep. It has recurred. And I can assure you, after 1 week or two, when the water recedes and the people are able to settle back again, then we may go to sleep again and wait for yet another one to happen. No, that will not be a proper way of doing things. And I think that we need to brainstorm and find a lasting solution to this. But climate change, they went to discuss a lot of issues. I heard His Excellency the President delivered a very eloquent paper on this matter. Look, climate change, the way we are fighting it, we are pretending. The countries that emit more and that destroy and deplete the ozone layer more are not committed to fighting this climate change issue. But unfortunately, some of those countries are not affected by their own conduct. The effects of their conduct is on other countries. And so when you talk so much about it, because they are not directly affected, they are not concerned about it. And in the end, you have innocent countries that suffer the effect.
Actually, now
of
everybody is being affected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody is being affected.
Changing weather patterns,
everybody,
melting of the globe.
Everybody is being affected.
Yes, but Professor Gordon, we're told you have some clarification and intervention to make with regards to the issues that have been raised so far. There was a particular point that was raised by Mr. Segbefia, especially as to when exactly do we expect this to end, looking at the gamut of issues that are associated with this problem.
That question, unfortunately, has a very unpalatable answer.
Okay.
It is not going to end. It is not going to end. I'm very sorry, because in Ghana we don't like to talk about the real issues and the facts and put them on the table. We don't want to face up to the reality of what we have. We like to gloss over Onyame Woho, but we have to be real. The projection is that by 2080, Independence Square in Accra will no longer be there. Castle, former seat of government, would have gone the way of the castle that was at, the fort that was at Keta. The original post office of Keta is, I am told, about 3 kilometers in the sea. We talk about the topography. There's no part of the Keta Lagoon that my foot has not touched. I did a complete bathymetric survey of that lagoon back in the middle 90s. The Keta Lagoon is no deeper than 3 meters at its deepest point. In many places, it's around 1 meter, 150. The sort of storm surges we are getting, where waves are over 2 meters, means that we are heading for a situation where the coastline of Ghana will be at Anyako. Those of you who know the area. And the Keta Lagoon will now become an inland sea.
Wow.
We also have to wake up to the fact that in all of these things, and yes, our hearts go out to the people affected, but the people most affected by this are the women. The women, the children, the marginalized. They do not have the resources, they do not have the wherewithal to move, and are literally at the mercy of whatever comes to them. So are we focusing any special attention on them? What I wanted to correct is the impression that it is the sand winning in the Keta area which is a major cause. It is a cause. But the direction of longshore drift along the coast of the Gulf of Guinea is from the west to the east. So what we do in Ghana will have very little effect on Côte d'Ivoire, but significant effect on Togo and Benin. Just the same way that the sand winning that is taking place in the western region, in the central region, and the greater Accra region will impact the people of the Volta region. So just as the developing countries are bearing the brunt of problems that have been caused by the developed world, the people along the coast of Keta are bearing the brunt of all of that illegal sand winning that is taking place all the way from Newtown in the western region along the shore. We cannot close our eyes to this. We do not need any additional laws. We have the Beach Ordinance of 1903, pre-colonial, which states very clearly how and why and what you should do in removal of materials from the beaches. The laws are there. The reference has been made to the former president, the late President Rawlings, and his work on not only the sea defense, but also he was also in power, I believe, when they were dredging the creek between Keta Lagoon and the Water Delta. But in the 1940s, there was sea defense in Keta, because this is a problem that has gone on and on and on. I'd like to.
All right, Prof, we'll come back to you. Hold on with that thought. We'll have to take a break. Yes, take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap up the conversation.
Hi, have you missed any business news this week?
Our appeal to the banks that it is not enough to show fat profits at the end of the year, publish them in the newspapers, and feel good.
Are you looking for a way to consume business news without getting lost in all of the technical language? Well, for our traders down here, all they care about is the fact that this could likely affect the cost of doing business.
We used to pay an average of $3,000 somewhere in November. Now it has shoot as much as $12,000 for a 40-footer container.
Business Weekly brings you all the top business stories of the week in an exciting manner.
Business Weekly, Sundays at 3 p.m. only on City TV.
Well, so, are you ready? Let's go.
Business Weekly is sponsored by Standard Chartered Bank. Standard Chartered Bank, here for good.
Welcome back from the break. This is the big issue on City TV. We've been discussing the impact of climate change, and of course, situating that within the context of what has happened in the Volta region, the southern shoreline of our country, and the devastation of tidal waves that has, over the past week, ravaged homes and wreaked havoc in that part of the country. A couple of messages before we continue with the conversation. This one from Abdul at Sakumono says, the issue of sun winning in Ghana is gradually getting out of hand. My recent visit to Aveima in the Volta region and Shai Osudoku in the Greater Accra region, this issue is affecting water supply, especially by the Community Water and Sanitation Agency. The quality of water is affected and water supply installations are compromised. As Sanko from Santa Maria says, are the MPP MP saying that no steps should be taken to save the people of Keta just because it is alleged it was sun winning that has brought about the problem? This is an uncaring government. Well, Paul from Mashali, which says, if indeed the pictures displayed and captured by the Deputy Majority Leader and his team is not the best, then they qualify to be someone to answer questions for spreading fear and panic. This is in relation to the issues that have been discussed so far. AU Faru from Tamale North says, good morning to you and your able panelists. Seriously, the neglect of the people of K2 South by the president is unfortunate. Is it because Volta is a stronghold of the NDC? Very sad, and there's going to be a repetition, and that issue is good. Okay, I really don't get what you're saying. Okay, so these are the messages we've had so far, but I'll go back to Professor Chris Gordon to complete the conversation or to bring us up to speed or give us the wrapping up comments just before we went to that break.
I think I also have something to say. I haven't spoken.
I'll come to you, Dr. Donatus. Let Professor Chris Gordon complete what you're saying.
Sorry, can I comment on the comments that you just read out?
Yes.
I cannot understand the in Akwakwin we say the Pachewe Akwasia. the stupidity of some of the people who are commenting on these things, and I don't think you should give them the space on air to view unproductive and practically foolish sentiments which are not based on any science, they're not based on any evidence, and are just making noise. Please, the issue is that people's lives are at stake. When a wave is coming, it does not come in party colors. It comes because of natural causes. So please, the media has got a lot of a major role to play in bringing this situation back to where it should be, where it is on the science, where it is on the solutions, and avoid giving these unnecessary space to pointless comments. I'm sorry if I'm being blunt, but I see so many things. The real issue is being hidden or masked by the politics. So the points that I wanted to make, they tie down to issues of justice, equity, safety, and harm. These are things that
Looks like there's a technical challenge. We have to resolve that. But if we have Dr. Donatus on, we'll bring him in this conversation at this point in time. Dr. Donatus.
Yes.
Yes. So if you have you have some interventions to make while we resolve the technical challenge.
Yes. The discussion has gone a lot. I think right now what we need is solutions. We need to provide solutions that will support the area and then at long last the entire coastline of Ghana. And what I have realized is that mostly we talk, but we have to give some attention to the sciences. Why am I saying this? If you go or if you try to search and find out what has been done, particularly at the Volta, you realize that there's a lot of information on the shoreline erosion rate. But we don't have data on water level for that particular area. We need to have this data. We have heard the people have it through this discussion that yes, relocating the people may not be the best solution, and because the situation might continue. So, but we have to provide some data. I think that particularly we need to have a long-term information about that area. We can develop what they call the early warning system. Even though the situation will occur, we will know that, yes, at this time it will occur. And we will know the magnitude. If we know the magnitude of the situation, then we can start preparing for the situation or the hazard. So I think the sciences must also be emphasized. We need to do regular monitoring. And this is very important. If we were doing regular monitoring at the time of our great-grandfathers, I don't think we would have been in this situation. And if we don't do any regular monitoring and give some attention to the sciences, in the next 100 years, our grandchildren or our children will also be saying the same thing. They will say, where should we go? Where should our parents go? So I actually emphasize that government, yes, is doing a lot, but they have to actually give some attention to the scientists to do more of monitoring, more of focus, and develop some methodologies that will inure to the benefit of the communities and the whole country at large.
All right.
And okay, I wanted to say more, but
no, you can I continue? Just give you just a few minutes to wrap up.
Yes, and to talk about the people, the relocation. We are all aware, and we know that it's very difficult, yes, because of cultural and then other factors. But the policies that are existing, like when you want to build, you should give a natural buffer. You should give some distance. most of the coastal communities, or if you go along the entire coastline, people are barely sitting on cliffs. Some are new ones are erected. The MMDAs, all the other people, they see it. Some of them are commercial. And I think if we really want to go somewhere, we have to make sure that we discipline ourselves. Those who do that should discipline themselves and see that they are doing the right thing. And government too should come in. And I personally believe that if forward as a nation, we have to be self-disciplined, because we see the wrong thing, we know it is wrong, and we keep on doing it, expecting somebody to come and chase us or say we shouldn't do it. So I'll encourage the government to implement the policies, supervise the settlement, the planning of the coastal area. And the last point I want to raise is the issue itself. The whole of the Bight of Benin, particularly from the Volta Delta to Nigeria, should be tackled. The solutions should be tackled collaboratively. I don't think Ghana should be working on this alone. I expect the government of Ghana to collaborate with that of Togo, to collaborate with that of Nigeria and Benin, because looking at this Bight, it is they have similar wave conditions. They have similar experiences. This situation happened. It didn't end at Keta alone. It happened at Hilakonji, the border between Togo and Benin. It happened up to that area. The flooding that recently occurred. So it's not a national issue. It should be considered a regional issue.
Okay.
And in that case, we can get somewhere. If they have to contribute some monies, it will help. It will help, because if Ghana is taking it alone, how much money can Ghana use to solve the problems of the Bight of Benin? So I actually suggest the three countries, or even including Cote d'Ivoire, if they can collaborate to handle this issue as a regional issue.
Very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, is Franklin Cudjoe with us? Franklin?
Listening with rapt attention.
Yes,
and,
yes. Franklin, my question, now we are considering the solution. So we've had a scientific basis to all of these issues. It's been tied into the climate change, the melting of the ice at the north and southern poles, and the global warming and all the issues associated with that. From the record of our governments over the period, what should be the approach to deal with this emerging issue, which has impact on our environment, which has impact on our livelihoods, which would even further translate into impact on our economy?
You know, a part of me feels a bit sad listening to Professor Gordon and then Dr. Donatus, because you see, while they are telling us essentially that this is a natural phenomenon, which, of course, a bit of it is human-induced, but overwhelmingly natural. I worry greatly because the very arcane nature of the way we deal with issues of environment, buildings, and flooding and pollution, even on land, and the fact that we are not able to do much about it. I wonder what we are going to do when the sea eventually swallows all of us up. So, yes, maybe we should take a good look at it, and it must be studied. And again, the science is out there, as the two good men have professed. A lot has to be done. Resources have to be mobilized, and conversations must be had about whether moving people uphill is better than leaving them there. But I shudder to think that we'll come back to this conversation again in a jiffy, because the clear examples of the things even that are happening on land, which we are not able to solve, which are mainly human-induced, builds into some sort of insignificance when it comes to the questions about the natural occurrence of the tidal waves. But there's been sufficient conversation and education this morning. I hope the authorities are listening.
Okay. Let me come in studio now and speak to the Honorable Pemka on this matter. Same issue, solutions to the problem.
Well, I stated that even when I was having my discussion on this matter, and I said it that we need to commit ourselves to it, and that's why I was talking about the need to put together a technical group, a group of experts who will, over time, they will be resourced and they will look at it and give us a permanent recommendation that will give finality to this issue going forward. instead of the knee-jerk reaction we have as and when it occurs. So I think that I'll go all out for government putting together a group of brains who are knowledgeable in this area, and they will come up with that recommendation that will guide government today and government tomorrow to see what we can do. At least, even if it does occur at all, it will be minimal, because some of these natural things, they are not foreseen, they are not anticipated, and because of that, you are unable to know when they are likely to occur. But if experts brainstorm and put in place measures and mechanisms to ameliorate the suffering of people when they occur, and then what also could be done to prevent it from happening, if possible at all, that would be the way to go. Policy direction is very important.
Okay.
Well, I want to agree with Dr. Donatus to a point that we shouldn't be looking at this as a Ghana-only problem. I think that it affects the whole West Coast shoreline, and if your neighbor's beard is on fire, they have to understand that it is very easy for theirs also to get ablaze if they are not careful. And in that way, if you do it as a look at the problem holistically that way, then you can even bring in donors and people from other countries to help preserve the shoreline of the coast. I want to express my gratitude to both Professor Gordon and Dr. Donatus on bringing out the real issues that are occurring. I would encourage my colleagues on the political sides of both political divides to take the politics out of this. The major thing that is coming out from everybody who has spoken is that it's actually affecting lives of people. If relocation was easy, the one that we even know is coming, the Badagry Dam, when they are going to open, everybody knows that they are going to open the dam. Water is going to flow. People should be moved from where they are. Has it happened? They are still fighting it because people have a very serious attachment to land and their livelihoods. And if you are moving somebody even to whose land are you taking the person to? That is also an issue. So I agree that all options should be looked at, but how to go about it, I go more with the scientific approach. All related, but more importantly, the planting, the tree growing, and there's mangroves and stuff, I think will slow the process down if it doesn't totally resolve it. Thank you.
All right, okay. I'm bringing a couple of messages. This time around, messages that do not politicize the issue. Dr. Babazamo from Kintampo says the Western world produces about 76% of carbon emission, which greatly affects the climate. What are they also doing about that? I felt very bad when I heard them indicating that Africa should reduce the exploitation of natural resources because it contributes greatly to climate change. Eric Odom from Gumwa Portson says it's an undeniable fact that sun winning goes a long way in affecting our shoreline. It's a wake-up call on the law enforcers, community leaders, and the NCC to set up in relation to education on our coastal borders. Okay, so that is how we would wrap up this discussion with regards to the tidal waves and climate change, and move on to another issue, the last issue up for discussion on our program this morning. It's got to do with legal education in the country. I want to say a big thank you to Professor Chris Gordon, founding director of the Institute of Environmental and Sanitation Studies at the University of Ghana. Of course, Dr. Donatus Bapintere of the Center for Coastal Management at the University of Cape Coast. Now, the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Godfred Yeboah-Dame, has asked the General Legal Council to grant admission to the 499 students who were denied entry into the Ghana School of Law. In a letter to the GLC, the Attorney General suggested that the students be admitted in November this year or in May 2022. According to him, provision can be made for the organization of classes in a way to cater for the entire candidates of the Part 1 course of the Professional Law course. A leader of the National Association of Law Students, Asari Hassan, says the recommendations of the Attorney General Godfred Dame to the General Legal Council on the fate of the 499 agreed law students addresses the long-standing concern. Asari Hassan is of the view that they welcome the step taken by the Attorney General but some of the recommendations are unacceptable.
I think the letter we saw is very welcoming, and I speak for the National Association of Law Students and not necessarily the 499. It is something we've been fighting for over the period, so we see it as a decision in the right direction. For the Attorney General to write to the GLC to consider its earlier decision is something that is applaudable. However, you look at the tone of the letter, it talks about transparency and integrity in line with the admission process being something that is of the negative perception. Now, the bit about students not passing the exam did not come out in this conversation or in this note. So I find the third option where students would have to write an exam a bit worrying. Now, what goes into writing an exam itself is quite problematic. People will have to take leave, psych themselves up. You can just think of the trauma and the psychological effect on us all this time, and suddenly we have about 19 days to prepare and write an exam. I think that will be a bit difficult. However, I think option 1 and 2 is quite welcoming, but as it is just a directive to the GLC. We'll wait for them to decide on which way to go, and then we can react appropriately.
So that's Asari Hassan, National Association of Law Students, a group that has been advocating for the expansion, better access to legal education in the country. We have Joseph Pemka, who spearheaded some of these reforms a couple of years ago.
Well,
this issue has reared its ugly head again.
Very, very much so. Well, Duke, I am, excuse me to say, I'm just fed up with the commentary on this matter, because it's like we are entertaining ourselves with noise. We are aware that there's a problem. Every year we meet and we talk about it. And when it is over, we wait again another year to talk about it. When it is over, we wait again another year to talk about it. You see, my commentary hinges on two main things. The fact that I have been privileged to have served on the General Legal Council before as a member. You know, I served as a member of the General Legal Council for about 3 years as Deputy Attorney General and a nominee of the Attorney General. But you see, there is something that is missing in all the conversation that is going on. And I articulated it on one platform about a few weeks ago. There's a very interesting one. The law empowers AG to, from time to time, give instructions to General Legal Council to act in a certain manner. But that's the interesting bit. And I'd like to tell you why it is the interesting bit. The Attorney General, who is mandated by law to sometimes issue instructions to the General Legal Council, is an ordinary member of the General Legal Council, which is presided over by the Chief Justice, and then 2 other justices of the Supreme Court. Sometimes when the Chief Justice himself is not around, then one of them preside on his behalf. So what it is like, let me use my brother Alex as an example.
Long as it's positive.
It's positive. My brother Alex was a member of the government of His Excellency John Mahama. And a law empowers Alex to issue directives to a committee presided over by the president to act in a certain manner. That's a very interesting one. Yeah. I don't know how that's going to happen. Why am I saying so? The Attorney General, being an ordinary member of GLC, is instructing persons, including the chair, to act in a certain manner. That's problematic. You see, if you don't take care, apart from law, it will lead to clash of egos. Why I am the chairperson of General Legal Council, you are an ordinary member and you are instructing me. The law says so.
Could that be why two members of parliament have filed a private member's motion?
That is one of the reasons why they've done so, to get the Chief Justice and the 2 Supreme Court judges out of the General Legal Council. I think that is what
would that be a solution?
It may not be, and I'm just coming to look at the issues holistically. You see, this problem is more than meet the eye.
Okay.
I'm privy to even happenings after the Attorney General has issued this letter that I'm unable to share with the public.
Okay.
Look, it is more than meet the eye. The basic thing we have in Ghana as a problem is that we need an overhaul of legal education. Overhaul. Reason being that until that overhaul is done, and I don't have any problem with the suggestion that has been put forth by my very good friend and brother, Professor Asare, that we allow the law faculties, we empower the law faculties and allow them to run the professional courses so that the Ghana School of Law, GLC, will be a regulatory body that will license them to practice. I think it will not be bad. Until that is done, the current situation, what led to it, I mean, is now public knowledge, was that the publication in the Daily Graphic did not state that for you to get 50%, which was the pass mark, you needed to get 25 in each section to qualify you. So if you got 49 in one section and you got 3 in the other, you will get 52, but you don't qualify. You see, that principle, I have said it, that as esteemed personalities and lawyers of that class that sit there, you ought to let the students know whatever rules and regulations are governing the exam way before they go in, so that once you make them aware and they go in, they are caught by the rules, no one will be able to complain. But if you make a blanket statement that pass mark is 50%, but you don't go to look at the details of what constitutes the 50%, then somebody gets that. Because remember that I understand somebody even got 60 plus in this exam, but the person has not been considered. And people who got 50 were considered because the person who got the 60 scored close to 40 something in one section and got less than 25 in the other section. So the person is not qualified. I mean, it may be a good rule because some of the courses, even in the law school itself, they have that system in place. But when you make the students aware way ahead of time, and then you go in and you fall into that trap, then you cannot blame anybody. But all the furore surrounding this is because of the communication, which came up only after the publication of the results. Some notice was posted that people needed to pass the 2 sections. That's what generated all this. Otherwise, we will not even be where we are. Because we're not talking about those who failed. In fact, those who failed were more than 1,000. Yeah. Nobody is actually talking about that because they didn't get a pass mark of 50. But the fundamental thing was with the 499. What do we do? Since we did not communicate to them before the exam that this was the thing. So different stakeholders, there have been agitations and the students are agitating, stakeholders have come in, commentary being run left, right and center. Then the Attorney General indicates that he has had discussions with His Excellency the President and was triggering a particular right available to him under the law to direct them to so act. But instead of directing them with a straight-jacketed provision that, look, do A, he then gives options, which is reasonable. You know, he says, look, admit them in the current year, this November, to pursue the course and make necessary arrangements to accommodate them. In the alternative, defer their admissions, grant them automatic admissions against next year. And the third one, let the 499 rewrite, but with the mindset that the pass mark is 50, 25 section A, 25 section B. These are the 3 options. It appears to me that already some of the stakeholders, the students, are not happy with option 3, but they are comfortable with A and B, that they have already passed the exam, and if you defer their admissions, they will not have a problem. They will wait and go next year, or they go this year. So that's what where we are now. But this whole conversation should be dovetailed into general policies of legal education in Ghana. When I was in Lagos,
what is preventing?
I did not.
What is preventing an overhaul of the system?
That's what where I'm going.
Because if you look at the statistics, for a population of over 30 million,
yeah,
there are less than 6,000 lawyers.
I agree. That's where I'm going.
With all the, I mean, how much of there's demand for lawyers.
In the late 90s, when I went to Lagos, I did not read law in the first degree. I did it in my second degree. You see, the point is that when we're in school, law was like a court. with all respect, you had only 60 students or less reading law in Ghana. At that time, the only faculty that was doing law in Ghana was Faculty of Law, University of Ghana, Lincoln. Maximum 60. And you had about 40 of them doing LLB and then 20 doing BA law. Then eventually they transitioned to the law school. And that time, when you passed your LLB, you didn't need to go anywhere to do anything. You just walk to the law school and take your admission letter and prepare and you move in. Then we brought in tech along the line. The first batch of which graduated in 2009 from the Ghana School of Law. From there, we opened up legal education at the level of the faculty. And so accreditation was granted to quite a number. Today, over 10 schools, institutions are running LLB in this country. But the same law school that regulated the 60 people years back is the one that is regulating thousands that are coming out of the various faculties. So what we are now doing is that you will go and spend all your money to have LLB, but you'll never be a lawyer. So you have thousands of people. Look, those who wrote and failed, there are thousands at home who didn't even write at all. So the suggestion that has been made, which I think is reasonable, and we should listen to it as a nation, is that, look, as a member of General Legal Council, we did assessment of some of the faculties, and they fell far below expectation. That is a fact also. So if we have that situation, give them time. If you are not able to meet it, withdraw the accreditation. And then you have some faculties with requisite staff and logistics and facilities that can run effective LLB. You empower them to run the professional course as well. Then the GLC becomes a regulatory body, or Ghana School of Law becomes a regulatory body. And then at the end of the day, you write a common exam, just as they do with ACCA and CA. Wherever you go to attend your classes will not matter. But the most important thing is that you go and take part in the professional exam. If you qualify by the criteria set forth, then you are given admission, or you are given your qualifying certificate to go and practice law. But until we do that, every year we will continue this ugly conversation. Because why? If we have about every year we have about 1,000 or more students coming out from the law faculties, and then many more are waiting at home, and we can only admit a limited number because of space, what do we do? And in any case, why do we want to continue to have a specific school that this is the place, go there and read professional law course when the faculties are there? This is a cry by many. And I think that the earlier we listen to it, the better for all of us. Because we, as you have indicated, we have, look, as a former Deputy Attorney General, I can tell you that we need many more lawyers in that ministry. We need not less than 300-400 lawyers in that ministry. Look, my region, Upper East, until recently that were able to get some 2 young ladies who sacrificed to go to the region. We had virtually nobody in the region to do work for us. When we had thousands of cases waiting for prosecution and assessment, and etc. So many other regions are without attorneys. Upper West was having 1. And yet, we are limiting legal education, the training of lawyers. So it is good to open it up. But the fear, which I think we should not entertain, is the fact that it will lead to flooding of the market with commodities that may not be that good for the market. But why? You can raise the benchmark for passing. You can go and read it. But if you come and write the exam and you don't pass, who are you going to blame? People fail exams every day anyway. There's no exam that everybody will pass. But I think as a country, we need to do something and do it fast. Lastly, Duke, as I indicated, where are we? The directive has been given by the Attorney General. The other students who passed and were given admissions, they started lectures. The compliance, we are not told whether the General Legal Council is complying or not. But I can foresee that the General Legal Council will say that they are not accustomed to act according to the wishes of the Attorney General. I foresee that. So you are going to have a situation where maybe the students are going to be encouraged again to petition General Legal Counsel, and then after that, they may have to say that yes, on the basis of what Attorney General has said, we think that you should invoke the first and second options, and then we'll be fine with it, etc. We will keep dancing around. If we just use General Legal Counsel and Ghana School of Law as regulatory body, open up the faculties, empower them to run the professional course, this noise will come to a natural end, and then we'll move forward as a people.
Oh. Yes, sir, well, this issue we've also practiced for some years. He's of the I'm comprised of the view that there should be an overhauling of the system.
I have to concur with my colleague's summation of the end, where he says, look, the whole process has to be looked at and not be overhauled. That I agree with. I think that there are other ways of dealing with some of the fears and problems that people have. We also don't have enough numbers of lawyers to be doing what we need to be doing. Lawyers go into industry, lawyers should be in ministries, lawyers should be at the Attorney General's office, lawyers, etc., should be in other, even MMCDCEs, etc. If you really want to look at what we need lawyers for, then we will have to open up the field to increase the number of lawyers that are coming out and have the options there for them to follow. Not every lawyer wants to go into private practice. There's also public agencies they can go into, and there are also private enterprises that they may want to go into. But coming back to the main issue, I'm grateful for the advice the Attorney General has given. I don't agree with option C. Let me just make that clear. I think that the first two options can be considered. As to whether the the Attorney General can write a letter to the General Legal Counsel, we have something in law which is called a voir dire. In the voir dire, so for example, if you had a jury in a case and information that was not supposed to come out came out, you might have to change the whole jury because prejudicial evidence has been given that should not have been heard by the jury. So for example, if it was agreed that somebody had previous convictions but they were not supposed to be mentioned in the trial, and somebody mentioned the person had previous convictions, then the whole jury is dismissed, a new jury is sworn in most of the time, because it is said that the jury will not be fair. They cannot expunge that information from their minds. But in a voir dire, when the judge himself is sitting, or the judge is the only person going to try the case, he's able to say that this information is not acceptable, and I will expunge it from my mind and still go ahead and continue the trial. So if the Attorney General is giving advice to people who are judges and who are above, it doesn't change anything. They can either expunge some of the things from their mind. They are big enough and learned enough to take the advice on the surface of how it is and deal with it, because that is what they do on a regular basis. He has just been given a power of an appeal on certain issues, or at least, if not an appeal, giving certain directions because of the particular position he holds as Attorney General. So yes, the private members bill will get away from, because justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. So you would hope that if this is a thorny area, maybe moving senior people like the CJ and justices from that body may be the way forward. That is a separate issue from what is happening now. The Attorney General has given his advice. I think it should be followed. It will mean you have an anomaly for a number of years in terms of the numbers, and then you take it from there. Bottom line is that the communication was poor, and the communication was not poor because of anything the students who are involved in did. The students are victims of poor communication, and the view was that there was a 50% pass mark, and that was for the exam. And so if you got the 50%, and now they are breaking it down into different segments, saying you should have A and B and C or whatever, that for me doesn't come across as being fair to the people who have already taken exams, written them, and have been told categorically that you hit a certain pass mark. And that for me is where it stops. Yes, the General Legal Council can stand on its rights and say, well, regardless of what anybody thought, this is what we were saying or what we meant. But that would not leave a very good mark or dent, especially since the Attorney General has written agreeing in terms that something was not right. And the perception is that they should be given, the 499 students should be given a chance to become lawyers or given the opportunity to become lawyers at this stage. 2,700 students, I'm told, wrote this exam. And 1,289 passed, with 790 being given the green light, and then the 499 not being considered. We should find a way to incorporate the 499. I know of a number of people. There's a young girl who sits in her room and cries every single day because a lot of effort is put in. The exams are not easy. People put in a lot of effort to get through. So when people feel saddened by this, it has such a psychological effect on some of them that some people may not be totally aware of. Also, we should be mindful of comments we make. They may be true comments, but the context and the way it's made may not go down very well. So if you are speaking and you say something is a right and it is not, and this, you may be right, but it sends the wrong message at a time when people are, for want of a better word, grieving because they feel that they have been cheated. So I'm glad that he has rectified that position of the statement and come up with this letter, which gives them an option. And I hope that the General Legal Council will listen to the Attorney General more so and get them in either option 1 or option 2 of the points that have been put in the letter.
But on the point of increasing access to legal education, which seems to be the overarching
look, one of the things that
point about this conversation
I am happy to say is that, and I don't know whether it's in every ministry, but in the ministry I worked in, Ministry of Health, one of the things that I insisted upon and got was a good lawyer in the ministry. Any contract that came to me, I say, go to the legal. He should minute on it, clear the content of the contract. And if he feels that it must go to the AG's offices for finality, then let them also clear it. If you are a minister and you have a document and it's a contract and you think that you are quickly signing, you could be signing your changing or sleeping place as you are signing.
Absolutely.
So you need, even if when you're a lawyer yourself, you are not the best person to be looking at that and thinking that you're being totally objective. So in my view, every ministry should have a legal person as a first port of call before, if in doubt, or that you send it to the AG's office, because the AG's office itself is snowed under. Then beyond that, you have TICO, MTN, all the private people, they go for lawyers. MMDCs, you are getting people who are being appointed, politics is in it. But they should all have lawyers in their offices. How many districts do we have? All of them should have at least 1 or 2 lawyers to advise on those contracts that they are signing, and the agreements they are doing. So in terms of employment opportunities, they are a whole raft. Technically, any hospital of a certain size, which can be sued, should have some legal, either on retainer or in-house, to give advice on all those contracts they sign. So there is a scope. If we want to do things properly, to get out of corruption and making sure that things are being right, there is a need to have legal advice at the earliest stage. This is something that we should be thinking about as a country more readily. And it's something as a political party we have been looking at and saying we would have done. So put the politics aside, the reality is that it should be done. And you cannot do that if you don't have the lawyers. So this idea that you have too many lawyers and it doesn't hold. In any event, he just said it, and it's true. We saw it in our time. To get somebody to leave Accra and go to certain regions is difficult. But if you're able to train them there, they'll be able to, they all should write one exam. But if they have schools, people are accredited elsewhere, and they can all train and just come and write the same exam wherever, it's marked by the same group, then the incentive to even come to Accra to practice may not be pushed. You start getting chambers abroad in the regions who will then be able to train people. And then you begin to build a good crop of lawyers away from just the big known cities of Accra and Kumasi. So expanding it, I agree with my colleague 100% on that point.
Very well. Okay, let's go on Zoom now and bring in Franklin Cudjoe on this issue, on this subject matter of legal education and the particular instance of these 499 students who have been denied admission. In fact, 129 out of these 499 are in court challenging the decision of the Ghana School of Law on this issue. But the Attorney General has communicated to the General Legal Council to grant them admission based on these three options, if I may put it that way, that is given to the General Legal Council. Varied views, but of course, at some point is that there should be deeper access or wider access to legal education in the country.
Well, so at long last, somehow the tyranny of the General Legal Council is unfolding. I think this act by the Attorney General, however insubordinating it might sound, is pretty much welcome. And I think this is a watershed moment, which I suspect will lead to the bigger reforms that everybody has been calling for. So it's been long in coming, and for me, I can only say kudos to the Attorney General, but much more the bigger conversation about widening the legal education in this country so that we wouldn't have to be, caught in this almost mafioso type of arrangement where people have to struggle in order to be recognized legally. I don't think it portends well for the legal profession itself. And crying out loud, I mean, it's been said that we need a lot more lawyers than we have currently. So I can only clap for those who have been advocating for these reforms, and then more grease to the elbows, really.
Okay. So we'll take a break. When I come back, we would be in the final moments of the program, and we would have wrapping up comments of the issues that we've discussed so far. It's a big issue. We'll be back after the break. Stay with us.
Your Sunday evenings just got better.
Fernandez, Greenwood, breathtaking.
Cut all the thrills, the fun and the action right here on Ghana's fastest growing TV channel, City TV.
Here goes LeBron, bullies his way in.
As we review the weekend sporting action, providing the best analysis on your favorite sporting moments.
That young man from Uruguay, Valverde.
Yeah.
Wow, goodness me.
Federico.
He's an engine.
Barcelona are very disappointed in themselves because they've been all over the place since the restart. My point is, they've literally handed the title to Real Madrid.
This is where it all begins.
Akanji in towards Haaland, who glanced it on.
This is Scorecard with me, Fentu Otahiru Fentu. Every Sunday at 9 p.m. only on City TV.
You're welcome back from the break. It's still the big issue. My name is Duke Mentopoku. We have a comment here that relates to the issue we've just discussed. This one's from Paul in Ashali Boche says it should be fairer for the General Legal Council to admit that they've caused emotional and psychological damage to those who passed the law entrance exams. Therefore, some kind of packages of compensation would not be too far-fetched. Okay, Emmanuel.
I'm sure you wrote the exam. This is a victim.
Emmanuel Tokave from Akotimes says, Alex Sebefia, you've made my day, keep it up. This one, Master Planner from Junaka says, we are pleading that the first recommendation made by the Attorney General should be considered. Let's admit the 499 students and be straightforward next time with regards to examination rules. So final minutes of the program, we're asking if the General Legal Council itself has to be reformed, because it's the body that oversees practice of legal practice generally in the country.
Well, first of all, you look at the composition. It is presided over by His Lordship the Chief Justice. Then you have 2 other justices of the Supreme Court. Then you have the Attorney General and 2 other nominees of the Attorney General. Then you have the President of the Bar Association. Then you have the General Secretary of the Bar Association, and then I think the Vice President of the Bar Association. Then in attendance, normally have about 3 of the faculties, their heads. So Faculty of Law, University of Ghana, the Dean becomes a member. Then Faculty of Law, University of Science and Tech is also part of it. The Dean is also part. So this is the general composition. Now, the problem I have with the composition over the years has been the fact that when the General Legal Council is properly constituted and it is certain, it becomes an administrative body whose actions are subject to judicial review by the High Court. So the question is, why will I, as president, allow my decision to be reviewed by my minister? You understand the logic in this? The president takes a decision and the minister reviews the decision. You know, it doesn't make sense to me. And over the years, high courts have made pronouncements against the General Legal Council presided over by the Chief Justice, who is the head of the judiciary. So that itself is a very funny kind of insubordination which comes in because the law allows the insubordination to come. So I was of the opinion, candidly, that we can continue to allow the GLC because it is a creature of statute, but we need some amendments. Only that I have a problem with the way it is being taken now, because 2 lawyers who are members of parliament have made proposals for private members' bill, okay, to be drafted for them to debate, and the Chief Justice will be out with the Supreme Court justices, and they are proposing in their state retired justices of the Supreme Court and all that. I think the problem I have with that is that we should engage more. There should be broader consultations, including the justices of the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice, but not just use the act of legislation without broader consultation to try and see if we can solve that particular problem, because this is the situation. Because remember that over the years, this has been the thing that has been happening from the 60s till date. So if we want to change it, we should engage in a conversation and reach national consensus before doing it. But if we just allow that to go through without broader consultation, consequences may arise thereafter. So, but I think that there need to be some reforms generally with General Legal Council and legal education as a whole, so that we can move forward. He stated, and I was just about to commend him for something he said. Look, even if you are a lawyer and you are the head of an entity, when something comes before you, get the opinion of a lawyer. Look, some of the prosecutions we embarked upon as a Minister of Justice were because people thought they were law upon themselves. But look, however unconscionable, once there is advice from the Attorney General and you act on that, nobody can come tomorrow and say, hey, why did you do A or B? Because there is something to protect you. So we should always get opinions from lawyers. And a lot of, look, I have known businessmen who have run their businesses to a complete collapse because just by paying a lawyer to assist them, they will refuse to do so and take personal decisions that will lead to a collapse of the business. Lawyers are a necessary component of our daily lives. And the number of lawyers we have in the country, for me, is on the low side. We need to train more, but we need to have a conversation that will lead to a holistic overhaul of the structural arrangement that we have in legal education to ensure that we grow legal education in the country to another level. Look, as we speak, a number of our people go to Gambia. And they pay $10,000 and all that for legal training for a year. And they are back here, some of them very good lawyers. You know, the fear is we are likely to lose some of these people who go out to do this, because as soon as they get opportunities there, they will not come back.
That's it.
People go to Rwanda now to read the professional law course. Why? Why are we not expanding it here to give room? Look, even if it means we create a two-tier kind of system to say that we have regular admission, we have fee paying, we should go ahead. After all, we do that for medicine and other courses, so that many more people can be trained as lawyers. The most important thing is not to compromise quality, but ensure that you open it up. It shouldn't become a cult, where if your ancestry was not a lawyer, you should not be a lawyer, and why should not be a cult? We should ensure that it becomes available to all those who have the brains and are capable of affording the cost of it, so that we open it up to everybody. And at the end of the day, you will have enough lawyers in the system to manage it, because most of the things that we have, procurement infractions and all the ills that we have in terms of government expenditure, most of it is as a result of the fact that lawyers are not in the system to advise agencies, departments, and etc.
Okay. Alex,
my take is slightly in a different angle. The Supreme Court of the land is actually also an appellate court. Okay. And at the head of it sits the Chief Justice. And there are very few areas of law which cannot go to the Supreme Court, and the Court of Appeal is actually the final arbiter. So like election petitions at the constituency level, it's heard in the High Court. You appeal to the Court of Appeal, and that's it. Unless there's a matter of constitutional interpretation involved, then that must go to the Supreme Court.
There was a decision taken in the Wulensi case. Nima Khan. So you can no longer go with election petition to the Supreme Court.
That is it.
That's the law.
There are very few. So that is one area I give as an example. But most everything else, the Supreme Court can become your final. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, what is the function of the General Legal Counsel? What is it trying to do that necessitates any Supreme Court judge sitting on it? Because at the end of the day, whatever goes wrong or right should be able to come there for some form of final arbitration. So if they are part and parcel of it, it becomes a problem, unless it's definitely necessary. But if it is not necessary, you should avoid a situation where we are using the topmost person, the Chief Justice, or anyone in that arena as part and parcel, except it's absolutely necessary. And I cannot speak to that without going through what their duties and functions are in detail to understand why there has been that necessity to have that level of authority and power at the GLC level, because there may be good reasons for it. So I stand to be corrected. The only point I make is, if we know the composition or the basis, the real reasons and the work that they do, then we may find that it is not necessary. And therefore, there's good reason for taking any Supreme Court justice out of that process, so that tomorrow, when something comes out of that, and somebody decides to appeal or take a decision on it, and goes even to the Court of Appeal, is not satisfied, he has the ability to go to the Supreme Court, where he will now go and meet people who are not part of any of the previous decisions that have been made. And that, for me, is the way I look at it in terms of an overhaul of the GLC body. But I stand to be corrected. There could be different views as to why you need the Chief Justice or a Supreme Court judge to be sitting on it.
Okay. Franklin, You have the final word on this issue about overhauling the General Legal Council. We're told that when they said it is an administrative body, but it's made up of stakeholders from all aspects of the legal fraternity, if I may put it that way. There's currently a private members vote that has been tabled to take some members of it and replace them, so for the Chief Justice, and replace them with a member of Franklin. Please, can you hear me?
He may not be.
Whoa. Okay. So I have some comments that I would read on the issues that we've had so far. I was hoping Franklin could wrap up the conversation
Not to worry.
For us, but looks like we have to move on and wrap up the program. So final comments.
Well, I think that on all the 3 topics that you've actually covered today, I wouldn't say much on the General Legal Council, as I think I wrapped up just now. I think on the issue of the sand winning and, on the tidal waves and mangrove growth and sand winning, I think that we should be circumspect in how we speak about it and deal with facts, as Professor has indicated. And always remember that it's linked to livelihoods and people's lives, and people have lost a lot. So I would simply say that we should show a little bit more concern about what is happening, but I think that all the advice has been given by the experts, and we should definitely use them. And even though I heard my colleagues say we should get a group or committee, the first thing the committee should do is look at all the old reports that already exist. Because there's so many reports that we have on the issue of our coastline and whatnot, which are put together, and there's no body following what has been recommended or not after the event. So that would be useful to do. On the first topic that we dealt with, I would simply say that the government should be a little bit more sensitive to the plight of Ghanaians. And the first thing that the government needs to be doing is leadership by example. There's too much example in my book of a certain lifestyle which they don't want to change. Yet everybody knows that there's austerity in town. And therefore that leadership by example is key in the first place to solving the problem that we have. One of the reasons Rawlings succeeded as a leader was notwithstanding the difficulties in the country, the way he moved, the way he built, everybody could see that he was suffering, he was doing everything with us. So people were prepared to accept it. But if your lifestyle is totally different and you don't want to change it, but you are imposing taxes, squeezing people more, then people will turn around and say, no, this is not a good way to go. Okay. We've had enough. Thank you.
Well, first of all, His Excellency the President of the Republic has the mandate of Ghanaians to govern for the next 4 years, and there's no disputation about that. And he is taking decisions that are going to be in the supreme interest of the people of Ghana. Remember that for the first 4 years, we had a referendum on him in 2020, and the Ghanaian people, by a majority of over 500,000, retained him in office to continue with his work. So he owes his mandate to the people, and he's acting in accordance with that to ensure that the people get the maximum benefit from that. There may be difficulties, but with time we shall overcome. And lastly, on the tidal waves issue in Keta, we should have a national conversation, we should have a national debate, we should put together technical experts who will advise on the way forward, not only for Keta, but all the coastal communities, so that such things can be averted in future.
Okay. That's our wrap up today's edition of The Big Issue. I sat in for your regular host, Godfred Akotoba. For my name is Duke Mensoko. Keep watching City TV for the very best in programming.